Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock, and it's time to start the webinar on juvenile justice and juvenile detention. We're going to hold for a couple of minutes to let everyone join, but very nice to see you here. And meanwhile, we're going to present Menti to catch up on who's in the room and where you're calling from. So stay tight, and we will present the Menti just in a minute. Christy, can you move the cursor from the QR code, please? Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
So you can scan the QR code or use the code on the top of the page. Enter the code on menti.com, and then you can join our little poll, which we always start our webinars. So again, welcome to this webinar on juveniles in detention, organized by EuroPris. We will soon start. I'm just going to give it a couple of more minutes for everyone to join. You see that we still have people joining, so I want everyone to be here from the start, hopefully. So we're almost 100 participants already. We can see that we have participants from Netherlands, where also the EuroPris Secretariat is located, Denmark, Estonia, Poland, Bulgaria, Luxembourg, Dhaka. We have also Canada, I could see, Germany, Belgium, Sweden, of course, and Ireland, Armenia. So great coverage in terms of countries. I see we have 43 responses and almost 100 participants. So please, I invite you to scan the QR code or enter menti.com and use the code on the top of the page, and then you can submit your own responses. My name is Gustav Tallving. I'm the Executive Director of EuroPris, and I'm very happy to have you all here for this webinar on juvenile detention. We were very surprised by the strong response to our invitation, which already the first couple of days had over 100 registrations. So that was quite impressive. And I really look forward to presenting some good examples for you today, and also to discuss with the audience about how to manage this population in a better way. EuroPris is a network organization. We cover the Council of Europe region in Europe, and that means from Armenia in the east to Portugal in the west, and from Sweden in the north to Malta in the south. So it's a big network of members. We have 41 members currently, all prison jurisdictions within this region. And thirdly, we're also a professional association. So we have as a goal to improve prison practice, and that we do through expert groups, workshops, webinars like these. And we also support members directly with exchanging information and practices between each other through online tools, etc. So that's what we do. And today we will explore further how juveniles are managed in the different countries across Europe. We have examples from Netherlands, Estonia, Sweden, and Northern Ireland. And before we continue, I would, if Christy, we can just pause the Menti for a little while. Thank you. And I would just like to introduce with a quote. And this is when I researched the topic before the webinar today. I was researching the situation in different countries, and I stumbled over this quote, which I think is quite, let's say, illustrative also for the situation in some countries. And it goes like this. It's like they live in a fantasy world or a fictional world. Then afterwards, reality catches up with them, and they're just little children again, curled up in the fetal position and regretting what they've done, says a police commissioner in Sweden. And this refers to a recent street execution, basically, that happened last summer in Stockholm. And this is a quite terrifying situation that we are facing in Sweden. Sweden is my home country, and I'm very happy to have colleagues from the Swedish Prison Probation Service presenting today as well. So you will hear more about the Swedish situation later. And it's quite striking when you look at the statistics. And then when it comes to juveniles between 15 and 17 suspected for murder in Sweden, it was in 2013, 16 suspects. And in 2024, last year, it was 395. So these are quite terrifying statistics. And I think it's a trend that is not very promising and that we have to deal with in new ways. And I don't think that development is unique for Sweden, to be honest, but we will hear, as I said, perspectives from different countries today. So I think with that, I will continue with the Menti, if you can bring it on again. Thanks. So we can continue to the second question. So that is, what is the age for criminal responsibility in your country? So please submit your answers, and we can see at least an estimate of how that's distributed over the participants in this webinar. So 4 countries seems to have the age of 12. Most will be stay around 14 or 15 years. And the 3 countries even have 18 years as the age for criminal responsibility. So this, of course, changing this age, of course, affects also where these juveniles go, depending on the age of responsibility, criminal responsibility. And we can see now when we get more responses, we get a more, let's say, even distribution. So now it's actually quite widespread of ages ranging from 12 to 18. But still, most answers are around 14 or 15. Okay, let's continue with the last question, Christy. Thanks. What do you consider the biggest difference in working with juveniles compared to an adult prison population? So I see that some have already maybe clicked the wrong button when they submitted their answer, but I think now we're getting responses to this actual question. What do you consider the biggest difference working with juveniles compared to the adults? And this is a free text response, so you just type in your response and submit it, and it will appear on the screen. Trauma response, developmental phase, the fragility. Can we hide the QR or move it up? Is it possible? Yeah. Maturity, hope, understanding of your actions, high emotional reaction, the law regarding juveniles or adults, of course, brain development, social pressure, still forming identity. Can we scroll down, please?
Just 1 second.
Let's see if we can bring it up. Otherwise, we continue. In this webinar environment, you have to be a bit patient. Thank you, Christy. Yeah, there you go. So you can maybe click down through these. I think it's great. So if you go down instead, there you go. Up, down, down. There you go. Yeah. The law, brain development, social pressure, identity is still forming. Keep going. Mental development again. Need to prove themselves. Vulnerability. Volatility. Yeah, that's interesting. Educational opportunities. Development phase again. More resources, maybe than for adults. Rehabilitation instead of punishment. Vulnerability again. Development in age. Different understanding. Greater focus on rehabilitation, which is good. Development again. High focus on development. Resources provided are necessary. Okay. Education-based approach, interesting. We'll hear more about that today. Special training, more age-appropriate interventions, relaxed environment, okay? More flexible on the edge, juveniles, living environment changes constantly. Managing inmates inside the penitentiary, okay. Hope still. Representatives of juveniles, I didn't get that one, but okay, let's see. And still developing. Okay, so a lot of focus on development and the resources that are provided to support juveniles. Okay, these topics will be echoed probably in the coming presentations. Before we continue with our distinguished speakers, I just want to highlight some housekeeping notes. And there's a Q&A box, and you can use that one to submit your questions. And my colleagues Christy and Roxana will help me in organizing the questions. We will do all 4 presentations in one go, and then we will have a longer Q&A at the end of the session. We think that's a better way of managing the discussion. The chat is disabled for attendees. So if you want to submit questions, that is via the Q&A function. If you have any technical issues, you can contact also Christy and Roxana, and they try to help you. The webinar will be recorded and later edited and published on our website on the event page of this event. Okay, so now over to the speakers. I'm very happy today to present 4 different presentations given from 4 different countries. I will introduce the speakers a bit more later. But we have Ms. Fleur Sovereign from the Netherlands, and Richard Taylor and Kathy Russell from Northern Ireland, Gunilla Hansson and Sara Åhlén from Sweden, and Stanislav Solodov from Estonia, which is going to present different perspectives on this topic today. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Fleur Sovereign to introduce the topic and make us wiser in general, and giving us an overview on the topic of juveniles in detention. Fleur is the postdoc researcher at the Erasmus University here in the Netherlands, and the senior researcher at the Academic Collaborative Center for Youth at Risk. So very welcome, Fleur. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here, and also thank you to EuroPris for allowing me to present. I will share my screen. Let me see. I hope you all see a presentation now.
Yes, we can see it.
That's perfect. Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. While I was preparing this presentation, I realized that there's a lot to say about this. So the presentation might be intense, but a hopefully fun ride. So fasten your seatbelts and enjoy it. And also my cat is really needy, so she might join the presentation. So if you hear any weird noises, it's not me, but it's her. So my presentation contains 2 parts. I will start by providing some information on the characteristics and needs of children and young people in detention and the implication for policy and practice, thereby highlighting the need for a tailored approach, and explain a bit about the Netherlands, how they approach this. In the second part, I'm really happy with the Menti at the beginning. I will zoom out a bit and focus on global variations, because even though the needs of young people are universal, there are very different approaches to youth justice across the globe. I will focus on the minimum age of criminal responsibility and also different approaches to detention in different sectors. So while youth in detention, the age can vary. Most are in their adolescence, and which also came from the Menti. The developmental phase youth are in is quite crucial. Adolescence is considered a critical transition in the life course, characterized by growth and change, but also vulnerability. It's a peak time for onset of mental illnesses. It's also a time of rapid brain development. The frontal lobe of the brain, responsible for planning, decision-making, and inhibiting impulsivity, develops much later than the limbic system, the part of the brain which is responsible for emotional and behavioral responses. Due to this imbalance, young people in their adolescence compared to adults engage in increased risk-taking, have a low self-regulation, and an underdeveloped sense of responsibility. They are less able to foresee the consequences of their action. They have a heightened vulnerability to peer influences. They're more sensitive for rewards versus punishments. But adolescence is also an exciting time, as we might also remember from back in the days when we were young, where young people can learn, build potential, resilience, build their identity, and becoming an autonomous adults. Considering these developmental needs, it's important to stress that the aforementioned studies relate to brain development of the average child. But what about justice-involved young people? Developmental vulnerability of justice-involved youth, particularly those in detention, is well established. Justice-involved youth may at biological disadvantage, as many have sustained various brain trauma from malnutrition, exposure to alcohol and drugs in utero, or abuse. Justice-involved young people also often come from disadvantaged social learning environments with limited access to physical and mental health care. And they've often experienced at least one, but quite often multiple adverse life events. All of this hinders their development, and it's important to look at their developmental age versus their actual age because they might be behind. Moreover, a lot of these youth deal with intellectual disabilities. A study in the Netherlands found that 44% of young people in our detention system had an IQ below 85. Hence, custodial models should address criminogenic needs, but also recognize and promote young people's strengths and needs in their development. This considers both individual factors like building self-esteem, autonomy, independence, but also factors related to young people's social environment, like stable housing, community ties, positive peer relationship, and employment opportunities, and provide a trauma-sensitive approach. This implies working with you to strengthen and build relationships in the community as much as possible, rather than focusing narrowly on offense-related factors separate from their social context. Further, as no adult is the same, there's considerable variations in young people when it comes to their needs and strengths. This calls for a tailored approach. Youth justice institutions should exist on a broad spectrum of security and care. In the Netherlands, since 2016, policy and practice have been working on setting up a versatile range of youth justice institutions. We currently have 6 more large-scale traditional youth justice institutions with quite high level of physical security that resemble a prison environment, but are very different because there is quite a pedagogical approach. And we have 5 small-scale facilities that offer lower level of physical securities. To provide some context on the Dutch system, young people can be trialed by juvenile law from the ages of 12 up to 23. It's mainly boys who end up in detention. 80% of our detention is pre-trial, so before youth are actually trialed. And therefore, it's quite short. So it's an average days of 68 days. And 70% stays, only 70% stays longer than 3 months. We have a small group of young people that stays quite long. They are under a specific treatment order. But most young people, about 50%, leaves before 1 month. So they're only in there for a couple of weeks. Particularly because we have such a large part of youth who stay relatively short, is why they developed these small-scale facilities. They were, as you can see, have a very different outlook from more a traditional prison setting. They are within the community and as homely as possible. They are small scale with 8 beds. They are local, very close to home. They focus on continuing or building protective factors. So young people, for example, go to their own school, they continue to work. They offer tailored care and security, and they focus more on relational security rather than physical security. As you could see in the pictures, there's no big walls, there's no bars in front of the windows. The windows actually open fully, and the focus is more on relational aspects of maintaining a secure environment. And they want to collaborate with youth and caregivers as much as possible, so they actually get a seat at the table. I want to stress that a lot of these elements are also present in the more large-scale, high-security facilities that we have, but particularly the small and also the less physical security elements and it being local are very characteristics of these facilities. I conducted PhD research focusing on these facilities, and the conclusion is that they are a very valuable addition to our youth justice system, and they are very effective in maintaining or building protective factors during detention. However, in our the Dutch system is also room for improvement. To provide justice-involved youth with the most suitable approach, youth justice institutions should exist on a very broad spectrum. We have 2 very good institutions, but if you really want to provide tailored care and security for every single youth, we definitely need more types of facilities. Furthermore, as I stated, in the Netherlands, we have a very large proportion of pre-trial detention. And recently, the Dutch Council for the Administration of Criminal Justice and Youth Protection stated that a short period of deprivation of liberty is not effective and/or meaningful and insufficiently meets the various purposes of the justice system. Responding to crime is necessary in every society, but it does not legitimize the large number of short detentions in the Netherlands. It's important to address this because even a short time in detention can cut off important protective factors, but it often does not leave enough time to build them. This speaks for careful consideration of how we may significantly reduce placements, particularly short ones. Okay, let's zoom out. Looking at children and young people in detention, it's important to consider the broader context of youth justice legislation and global differences in that respect. Because, as I said, even though the needs of young people are largely the same globally, approaches to youth who display risky or criminal behavior vary considerably. Together with Heidi Hills, I founded an international research group, bringing together researchers and practitioners in monthly meeting where we discuss different approaches. One of our research groups, led by Enes Delmage, focuses on the minimum age of criminal responsibility. This is an important age cutoff, as is the age from which young people can be detained in youth justice institutions. The United Nations recommends the standard of 14 years, below which children shall be presumed not to have the capacity to infringe penal law. While they recognize that some countries set the age above 14 and they advise not to lower it. As also came from the Menti, there's considerable variation across the globe on where this age is set. There are 3 countries and 33 states in the US that have no minimum age of criminal responsibility. The lowest formally recorded age is 7 and the highest is 18. Adding to the variations, there are 26 countries who vary the age according to the seriousness of the offense. 10 countries operate a minimum age that is different for boys and girls. And there are at least 5 countries where Sharia law operates alongside regular law. So this shows that it's very different, and it suggests an underuse of evidence in deciding it. This stresses that we need more governmental willingness to bring the age at least to the UN recommended level. Given the developmental vulnerabilities of justice-involved youth, particularly those in detention, they may be especially vulnerable to poor decision-making and impulsive judgment. This is, of course, not to suggest that there should be no action beyond sympathy, but rather that it's all more important that the action taken are uninformed by developmental realities rather than just an arbitrary legal cutoff. Hereby, we should also consider the effects of labeling. Children passing through adolescence are essentially in a stage of identity acquisition in which they learn about what they're good at, in which social group they belong, and working out who they are. Even low-intensity involvement with the justice system can signal to the child that offending and being a young offender is part of their identity and can increase the risk of recidivism. These variations in age relate to the variations in whether we emphasize a justice approach or put more focus on welfare and mental health practices. When considering children and young people in detention, it's interesting to look at detention from a wide angle. Because besides justice institutions, children can be detained in welfare, health, or immigration settings. Within Giraffe, we started an international comparison considering the different sectors that detain children. With some countries within our group, we looked at the total numbers in justice, welfare, and health. Leaving out immigration for now, but we definitely have ambitions to include this in the future. As you can see on this graph, there are significant variations between countries in total rates and across different sectors. It's important to note with this graph that it's quite difficult to get these numbers, so that's an important disclaimer. And we further looked at the distribution of beds within each country. Our cohort shows significant variations in approaches. The majority of secure beds, for example, in Denmark, Scotland, and Sweden, were based in the welfare sector, whereas in England, Northern Ireland, and Australia, secure beds were mainly in the justice sector. Further, Looking across different sectors, we found that different jurisdictions show similar patterns of disproportionate representation of certain groups in terms of gender and ethnic cultural background. Moving from mental health to welfare to justice, you see that the proportion of boys increases and the proportion of young people with a different cultural ethnic background from being white and Western increases. These patterns of demographics may reflect inequality of service position and biases in process of decision-making about placement. As a final point, I want to stress that children may have a different perspective on what is deprivation of liberty as compared to a professional or legal perspective. It's therefore important that children and young people can exercise their right to participate in discussions and decision-making that affects them. The voices of children and young people with lived experiences can contribute to improving detention practices to optimally attend their needs. I want to thank you for your attention, and if you want to know more, please don't hesitate to contact me, and we're also always looking for new members in Giraffe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fleur, for that very comprehensive presentation in less than 15 minutes, which was the agreement. Thank you so much. It was a great introduction to the topic, and also we got some insights from the Dutch context. And I already picked up a few questions here for myself. And I encourage the audience also you can start submitting questions to the Q&A already, and then we will revise them and get back to them at the end of the session. Thank you so much again, Fleur, and we will continue with our colleagues from Northern Ireland. Mr. Richard Taylor, Governor in charge of Hydebank Wood Secure College and Women's Prison, and Miss Kathy Russell, Governor and Head of Unit for Activities and the Personal Development Unit based at the same facility. So the floor is yours. We look forward to hear more about the Northern Irish example. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to share Hydebank Wood and the Northern Ireland Prison Service story. As we said there, my name is Kathy Russell, and I am the Head of Unit Governor for the Student Development Unit activities and voluntary community sector within the Northern Ireland Prison Service in Hydebank Wood. I'm joined by Richard Taylor, who is the Governing Governor of Hydebank Wood. And I'm just going to pass on to Richard to start.
Good afternoon, and just to echo Kathy's comments, to thank everyone for the opportunity and to thank EuroPris for the opportunity to tell a bit of our story in Northern Ireland. And of course, concentrating on the fact that the Northern Ireland Prison Service is a relatively small service in comparison to a lot of the people who will be listening in. To give you some background to the development of Hydebank Wood, where we have came from and where we have got to. And I have written down on my pad to talk slow, so hopefully I'll keep referred back to that and not speed up too much. So the Northern Ireland Prison Service in 2011 underwent a full review, which was commissioned by the government. And that review was carried out by a team led by Dame Anne Ors. And one of the recommendations from the review was that Hydebank Wood should transcend into a secure college. And this is something that the UK government had tried to do over a number of years, but it had remained unsuccessful. And our job was to take Hydebank Wood from a young offenders institution and a female prison and transform it into a secure college. I think it's important to note that there was no blueprint for this work, nor there was any other previous practice for us to refer to. And just to give an indication, at Hydebank Wood today, we are sitting with a custodial roll of 160, and that's 115 females and 45 young men, aged between predominantly 18 to 21, although we do have the facility to hold them up until the day before their 24th birthday. And the female population covers all ranges from 18 years up. We're the only female facility in Northern Ireland to hold adult females, and quite a lot coming in with neurodiverse and complex issues. So we became a college in 2015, and that was after a full inspection, which was unannounced, carried out by the Chief Inspector of Prisons and other relative inspecting bodies. The results for the Northern Ireland Prison Service were fairly poor, if not damning, I suppose, for us at that stage, over 4 key areas, which were safety, respect, purposeful activity, and resettlement. It was decided on the evidence based that the prison service were very poor in each of those areas, particularly in relation to safety. And the Northern Ireland Prison Service were advised that if significant progress could not be made in order to address significant concerns that had been raised over the 4 key areas, then the consequence could be consideration for privatisation or indeed closure. It was recognised that key changes and fundamental change was needed in our daily work, and as a consequence, the Justice Minister at that stage, Mr. David Ford, commissioned a task force for change to look at both the culture, the organisation, the processes and the procedures in relation to Highbank Wood.
Next slide, please. So as Richard has said, there was no blueprint, so it was up to that task force and that team to really establish a new standard to move forward with. They had some core key principles. Those were that learning and skills would be at the heart of everything that we do, and that offender management and risk reduction programs had to be delivered as the need was identified. All people that come into our custody are now assessed as close to the point of committal as we can for their educational level, and over 85% at the first review were identified as below basic levels of literacy and numeracy. Next slide, please.
So in terms of some of those changes, some of the fundamental factors that created the principles for us to move forward was to have a look at what those difficulties were in terms of culture. First of all, looking at the management team that were in place, and I think it's fair to say that over many years that there has been significant changes made, both in terms of the personnel, but also in terms of the roles that managers were required to carry out. Certainly a change in culture. The reality very much at Highbank at that time was that relationships between management and staff, between management and trade unions were very poor, that the female prison and the young offender centre was deemed to be dysfunctional, and the evidence certainly proved that. Some of the more trying factors were that staff were so disenfranchised that at a starting time of 8 o'clock in the morning, all staff would queue up outside the gate and then come in one at a time, therefore ensuring that any regime changes were going to be very slow in terms of eliciting either a basic head count or indeed moving forward to an increasing regime through unlock. Some key positions were looked at in terms of driving the levels of responsibility right down to those people who were at the closest point of service delivery, and setting out clear direction and focus on what was required in order for each individual area across the 4 key pillars to change. I think we were very clear about a couple of the things that we want to do, which was in our language, setting out our stall about what we want to achieve. And what you call something changes its meaning and how you value it. So one of the first things we did was look at that term, prison and young offenders institution, and we decided to call our college the Secure College, in line with the government direction, but it was more of setting out our stall and saying this is our clear direction of where we're going. We don't call people in custody here, we don't call them traditionally prisoners or offenders. Instead, we made a conscious decision to call them students, and again that was to focus not only for people that reside here, but for people that work here, that our focus really was on a college ethos, and our focus centred on putting learning and skills at the heart of all that we do.
So the Northern Ireland Prison Service have recognised that we had a profound knowledge of management and care of offenders, but that we didn't have the skills in-house to address the educational needs of our population. A pilot project was launched with one of our main education providers in Northern Ireland, and it lasted for 2 years. It was successful, and it resulted in the outsourcing of learning and skills to the Belfast Metropolitan College. So not only in Hydebank Wood, but also in the other establishments within Northern Ireland. A timetable was created for Hydebank that offered equitable access to learning and skills, and this was then supported by scheduling both educational and vocational activity and providing a predictable and stable regime within the establishment. We set a target of 100% involvement in activity, and staff started to realise that having an empty landing was a happy landing. Staff bought into the activity attendance, and it became part of a daily task as opposed to a problem to be faced every day. Now, there were significant challenges, as Richard has said, but there was comprehensive work undertaken with the trade unions and with our partners, and with our voluntary community sector partners. We introduced service level agreements, and those people came in and started to help support changes within the establishment and support the individuals who are here in our care. The next slide, if you want to load the whole thing, please. The mantra of the Northern Ireland Prison Service in general, and for a lot of establishments, would have been security, security, security. How do we keep people here within the walls and stop them from escaping our custody or from causing any further damage or harm to our community? The change here in Hydebank Wood is that our mantra is now regime, regime, regime. We talk about how we can make things happen and what we can do differently. We introduced things that had never happened in prisons here before. We pushed decisions down to our staff and allowed them to bring ideas forward. And from the slide you can see there, we introduced therapy dogs, animal husbandry. We have built a city farm. We have bees, hens, sheep, goats, donkeys, and a horse, all of whom are taken care of by the people who live here in Hydebank Wood. Next slide, thank you.
And as Kathy has said, the changes didn't come without the challenges. We were very clear that, certainly in our research, that statistics show to us that more young people in the United Kingdom have been affected by imprisonment than have been affected by divorce. And that's a fairly startling statistic. And I'm going to say it again, more young people in the United Kingdom have been affected by imprisonment by divorce. So statistics have said that young people coming into custody, that either their fathers or mothers or a family member will have been in custody before them. And we undertook a fairly large project to have a clear look at those statistics. 6 out of 10 young people are affected by the causes of imprisonment by family members. We certainly recognise that a comprehensive and engaging family strategy was essential to delivering our aims. Having the support of people when they come into custody, having the support of their family members proved pivotal in terms of achieving some of those very core aims. Although in 2015 we officially opened as a college, we did and have continued to re-evaluate and reassess that curriculum which is in place and adapting that curriculum to fit the needs of what is for us a very diverse and changing population. What we have saw is a significant reduction in the numbers of young men aged 18 to 21 coming into custody, and a significant increase in females coming into custody. And as I said before, particularly females coming in suffering from serious mental health illnesses and physical health issues. In partnership with Belfast Metropolitan College, we have formed close links with local employers, identifying shortfalls in our local market and adapting our curriculum to increase employment opportunities and prospects for those people on release, demonstrating to them that Hydebank Wood has a cohort of skilled and employment-ready individuals who are keen to make a change in their lives. Our community outreach initiatives have inspired members of the community come in to our facility here, giving up their own free time to teach and mentor some of those most difficult and ostracised members of our society as our student population. To make meaningful change, this could not be decided by a committee or the staff or managers. All were empowered to make changes within their own areas and to bring those areas forward to us.
If you want to move on the slides, please. There were a number of key lessons from the beginning of Hydebank becoming a college to now. In 2013, there was high evidence that young women were being verbally abused from the windows in their rooms. This was a shared estate, but managed as two completely different prisons. This had been mitigated then by introduction of the whole prison ethos. Hydebank is a microcosm of our society, and we have seen the societal issues replicated in terms of respect, as mental health, and of addiction. The change of identity of Hydebank for residents, not referred to as prisoners or offenders, but as students, and in fact, mostly they refer to us and we refer to them by first names. This has been noted in the recent inspection where staff-prisoner relationships were named exceptional. It's been very important to our young people to believe that they are a part of our community to make this a successful initiative. There's a huge importance on partner agency approach, not only with the South Eastern Trust, who is our healthcare provider, but with Belfast Metropolitan College, and as I mentioned, a number of other community-based teams. Our senior management team has evolved to include managers not only from Belfast Met, but from the South Eastern Trust, probation, and they're all represented at our weekly multidisciplinary management meeting. We work together very closely, and all of our work and our goals are interlinked. There are huge benefits of collaborative working, not only with our statutory partners, but also with our voluntary community organisations. A further key lesson then was communication. There's a positive impact to be had of a good communication strategy, not only from the top down, but from the bottom up. We have regular staff forums, student forums, focus groups and surveys, and we use those to ensure we are given the best experience that we can and listening to the lived experience of the people who are in our care. Everything that we learn from those are used to inform what we do. And you can skip on again, thank you. Some of the photographs are examples of community sector partners that we work with. We've had to be very inventive, creative about who we work with. We have a light vehicle maintenance educational centre as part of our educational centre, and we reached out to our local museum who donate vehicles, and that allows the students then to work on vehicles in a real mechanic setting. Our kitchens and our staff canteen are operated by residents who have received qualifications in catering and hospitality. And as I've said, this is all with the goal to try and to get employment on release. And the next slide, thank you. So Hydebank Wood is more than a college. It's a community and it's a part of the community. Everyone here is asked to play their part, and mostly they do. The Student Development Unit is a key strength of ours. We assess the needs and strengths and issues of all individuals on committal, and we do an individual development plan for each person to plan their journey through custody. The Safety and Support team support the most challenging in our care. Our proactive security team have an emphasis on creating the right environment to enable us to do everything that we do every day in the safest possible way. Our learning and skills staff, some of whom are prison officers who have taken qualifications themselves and are now instructors delivering qualifications in recycling, painting, horticulture and animal husbandry. And we have a strong residential management team whose daily focus is not how many people are behind the door, but the numbers allocated to purposeful activity and a full productive day. The overarching whole college culture where the teams strive to make it work. And the next slide, please.
And as Kathy has said, and as some of the photographs depict, we involve everyone in Hydebank Wood, both those who work and those who reside here. And what we're working on is that mantra of if we involve people, we get their commitment. And that is certainly shown by a lot of the charity work that we do. Each year we pick a nominated charity and we work together as a full team of people, including volunteering community sector and volunteers from outside. And last year we raised over £6,000 for our local air ambulance. And this year our registered charity is White Ribbon, which is bringing forward that education of learning lead against violence against women and children. So what was it that HMIP and Sejini said whenever they returned to carry out follow-up inspections? In 2016, just 3 years after that very critical report, as the slide shows, that they commended Northern Ireland Prison Service and local managers for their bravery and single-minded determination for fostering a culture of improvement. Again, in 2020, the inspection was a very positive outcome for the Northern Ireland Prison Service. 3 out of the 4 healthy prison tests were judged to be at the highest level of good, and the 4th assessed as the second highest level, which was probably the best result that has ever happened within a Northern Ireland Prison Service. And again, in 2024, leaders had promoted an atmosphere of respect, care and optimism, and the positive culture that they have cultivated was enabling many prisoners to flourish. Leaders had trusted and enabled their teams to use initiative and to make decisions which were helping them to realise their state and vision of changing minds and changing lives. And that inspection resulted in top marks across all of the 4 key areas for both parts, both the female and male side. It did recognise that we were delivering high quality measured outcomes, and that a positive journey was well underway at Hydebank Wood, and something that we're conscious of keeping going for the future. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and looking forward just to the question and answers if there's anything else that we can help you with.
Thank you so much, Kathy and Richard, for that presentation of the Secure College and the female prison in Hydebank Wood. It's a very fascinating development you're describing, and I think there will be a lot of questions also on how to improve practice, which is actually what you showcase here today, that you can sort of start with a pretty difficult situation and you basically have to overhaul the whole organization to improve. And that's, I mean, in any stage you are in implementing this kind of institution or activities, I think is very inspiring to see that you can improve. It's not like a static situation that you just have to manage. So thanks for that. I will now continue with the third presentation, handing over the microphone to my previous colleagues at the Swedish Prison Probation Service, Gunilla Hansson and Sara Åhlén. Gunilla is a legal expert at the legal department of the head office, and Sara is working at the Department for Operational Development, also at the head office in Norrköping, Sweden. So please, with no further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting us here today. And we also like to thank the earlier speakers. It's been so interesting listening to you. So we can move to the next slide, please. Here's an overview over our topic. Sarah will start our presentation with briefing you about the Swedish community development regarding youth crime. And I, Gunilla, will then continue to describe the direction of Swedish criminal policy. And then, after we have given you a short presentation of the Swedish Prison and Probation Service, the SPPS, we will focus on the governmental mission to prepare for special prison units for inmates between the ages of 15 to 17 years. And the ages of 15 to 17 is what we mean when we talk about juveniles in this presentation. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. And the next slide, please, Christy. I'm just going to give you a very, very short overview of basically two tables that show a general decline in youth crime. I'm sure you're aware of the good fact that youth crime has declined in many Western countries since the 1990s, Sweden included. And it seems like the downward curve has flattened since 2015. We can change slides. Christy, please. Unfortunately, though, juvenile involvement in organized crime in Sweden is increasing. To give you some unfortunate statistics, horrifying statistics, in 2024, there were 296 confirmed shootings with 44 persons killed and 66 injured. During this period, there were 129 confirmed detonations registered. And the police authority estimate that approximately 13% of persons actively involved in organized crime in Sweden are younger than 18 years of age. That means around 1,700 juveniles. And approximately 37% of persons that can be linked to organized crime in Sweden are 21 years of age or younger. And if I can ask you, Christy, to just push one more time on the slides to get the table below. Thank you. So unfortunately, the average number of juveniles on remand have steadily increased. And just to give you a short table, you can see some statistics from 2022, where there were 21 juveniles on remand, going up, unfortunately, to this number of 135 juveniles in remand in February 2025, so a month ago. So just some other statistics that I think you mentioned, Gustav, in your introduction. These are some statistics showing the number of juvenile suspects for murder from the Swedish Prosecution Authority. And as you can see, there is an unfortunate and very steep increase in suspects, juvenile suspects from 2020 and to the last year's unfortunate and very high figure, which is absolutely alarming and horrible in every way. So over to you, Gunilla.
Thank you. And before we tell you about the governmental mission, it's necessary to mention the direction of Swedish criminal policy. In 1922, after the election, the new social conservative government agreed on a political framework with the Social Democrats, a party outside the parliament. And the aim of the political framework is cooperation to resolve Sweden's most important social challenges. And one of those projects concerns crime policy.
Sorry, Gunilla, you meant 2022.
2022, of course. Thank you, Sarah. And along with the crime development that Sarah described, this means the framework means that Swedish criminal policy has changed direction. So focus is on groundbreaking measures to stop criminal gangs and a complete review of criminal law, including tougher and longer penalties in order to protect society from crime and criminals, and decreased opportunities for parole, and also forceful measures to stop youth crime. And I will also mention the overall transfer of focus from the offender to the victim of the crime. So when it comes to measures to stop youth crime, the earlier Social Democrat government had already in 2021 tasked the Commission of Inquiry to make a review of regulations depriving juvenile offenders their liberty. The review included considering which government agency was best suited for the enforcement of custodial sentences. In 2023, the Commission proposed that the SPPS should be entrusted with enforcing custodial sentences for offenders aged 15 to 17 years. And this was the proposal that led to our governmental mission, and the mission we will tell you more about in a moment. There are some more measures to stop youth crime that has to be mentioned. Another Commission of Inquiry has also proposed lowering the age of criminal responsibility in Sweden from 15 to 14. And this only when it comes to severe crime, and only for a period of the next 5 years. They also proposed eliminating or lessening the penalty discounts in the courts for young offenders, both 15 to 17 and 18 to 21 years. And they also proposed introducing a new penalty, probation penalty, extended youth supervision. So we can move to the next slide, please. So the question is, will there be an increase of juveniles within Swedish prison and probation? Well, if you look at the direction of criminal policy and the proposals of change mentioned, the answer looks like an obvious yes. This picture shows the sanction system for juveniles in Sweden as it looks today and the potential structure in 2026. And as you hopefully can see in the flow in the top of the picture, you see that today fines are a common sanction for less severe juvenile crime. And social services also has a prominent part in the sanction system for juvenile offenders. And then if you move to the right, you see youth supervision, and that's a new probation penalty for juvenile offenders, which was introduced under 2021. And then when it comes to depriving liberty, institutional care is the main form, and the responsible agency is the Swedish National Board of Institutional Care, the SIS. And the maximum deprivation time period is 4 years. And prison for offenders under 18 exists in today's system, but is reserved for extraordinary situations and has until now been very, very seldom used. But as a result of the Swedish community development, there are now clear signs of change in court practice within today's system when it comes to prison for those under 18. And just the other day, the Swedish Supreme Court sentenced an 18-year-old man to almost 9 years of prison for inter alia murder and attempt to murder. And the crimes had been committed when he was 16 years old. And the SPPS, of course, follows the development with great interest. And then you can hold the last picture, please. Yeah, thank you. In the flow at the bottom of this picture, you can see a potential clear transfer towards prison and probation for juvenile offenders instead of social security sanctions or institutional care. Most of the measures to stop youth crime is suggested to enter into force in July 2026. So this is what it looks like if the Swedish Parliament adopt the legislative bills. Yes, now we can take the next picture, please.
So just to give you some very short statistics about the Swedish Prison and Probation Service. So we are responsible for prisons, remand prisons, and probation services. And we have currently today 46 prisons, 38 remand prisons, and 33 probation offices. We are currently around 20,000 employees. We have been recruiting a lot of people, and we are not finished with that in any means. Our prison population per 100,000 citizens are 79, which is the highest number within the Nordic countries. So 38% of all sentences are served in prison, and 62% of the sentences are served on probation. So next slide, please, Christy.
And as a result of the described development in society and crime policy and other influencing factors, the SPPS forecasts a great increase of prison population in the next 10 years. And there's different scenarios in this picture, but a very simple way of describing it is that we plan for a tripled amount of inmates in 10 years to somewhere around 30,000 inmates. And now we talk, of course, about grown-up inmates. Yes, we can take the next slide, please. So due to these increasing volumes of clients in prison and in remand prisons, the SPPS experienced an enormous expansion and great challenges in capacity shortage. And this means an extreme pressure in the prison and remand infrastructure. Some examples are that in the same period of 10 years, we need to double the amount of our staff. And there's 45 ongoing real estate projects for building new prisons. And the SPPS is working on solving this situation in many different ways, both on short and long term. And some of the long-term measures are looking into renting prisons abroad, using prison ships, and other extraordinary measures. And the next picture, please. Thank you. And this picture shows the parallel processes of the governmental mission and the legislation process. So in August 2023, we have this earlier mentioned proposal to replace institutional care for young offenders with prison. And the next step in the legislation process is that the government submits a legislative bill to the parliament, and this is supposed to happen this September. And the final step in the legislation process is that the Swedish parliament adopts the legislative bill, which we assume will take place around the turn of the year. And a precondition for this proposal was that the operations of the SPPS are adapted to housing children. The Commission emphasized that children must be able to serve their sentences under safe conditions, with rights to activities such as school, leisure activities, and treatment programs. And this demands staff with the right expertise and experience. And the provisions of the Convention on the Rights of the Child must be fulfilled. And then in September 2023, a month after the proposal, the government tasked the SPPS to prepare for specialized juvenile units where prison sentences for children between the ages of 15 to 17 years can be enforced. And these parallel processes implies several uncertainties when it comes to the legal conditions for the enforcement of the prison sentences. For example, what will the conditions for association with and separation from other inmates, how will they be? And how will the regulations on visits and other formal contacts with their family look like? And some of these questions deeply affects our work with the preparations, but hopefully in September, when the legislative bill is presented, we will know more. So thank you, and Sarah?
Yes, thanks, Christy. I think it's almost the last image we have. So just to give you a quick overview of what we did in 2024, we created a feasibility study and we started our preparatory work with this mission. And in 2025, a few weeks ago, we appointed 8 prisons to gradually prepare for specialized juvenile units as per the 1st of July 2026. And we are planning to have 100 prison places opened in 2026 and up to 250 prison places in 2027. And I should say that we have prisons in 3 different security classes. So we will not have the most open prison. Those places will not be prepared for these juveniles. And just the puzzle image is just to show you that we have tried to think of almost all our processes in the SPPS that will be affected by this new mission if the Parliament makes or takes this decision. And we are, I should say, without exaggerating, that this is a tremendous challenge for us, but all the same, we are very motivated to try and create the best opportunities possible for this change. We have also been very clear that the cost for preparing these units will be higher, considerably higher than for units for adults. And we are moving forward in full steam with our preparatory work. And I think that was all of our pictures. And we have a familiar face maybe in the middle. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah and Gunilla, and thanks for giving me flashbacks to 15 years ago with that picture. Well, a lot of passed since then. Thank you so much for this introduction to the new, potentially new system of youth prisons in Sweden. It's a development for which you, as a Swedish citizen, are a bit depressed, to be honest. It's hard to see this development, but at the same time, there is a need to meet the increased crime, let's say, levels in Sweden, which are very serious at the moment, and it's been the case for the last 5-6 years. So yeah, what to do? That's the question for the discussion, maybe. Thank you so much. We will continue with our last speaker for today, which is Mr. Stanislav Solodov from Estonia. Stanislav, are you there?
Here.
Excellent.
Wait for my opportunity. Thank you for inviting.
So Stanislav, you're the team leader at the Ministry of Justice and Digital Affairs, and you're here to tell us a little bit more about 2 projects from Estonia. And we look forward to hearing your presentation. So I give you the floor, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen now in hope that you can all see what I like to share. So do you see my presentation?
Not yet.
Just a second. Of course you don't, because I don't share my screen yet, but maybe now.
Yes, now is good.
Thank you very much. Once again, thanks for inviting, and I'm gonna give you a brief overview in this 15 minutes of our 2 Estonian projects, which are both related to juveniles and young offenders. And if we talk about Estonia, just a few graphs and schemes for you to see the context, what we're talking about. So first of all, that we are relatively a small country regarding the population, and we also have this age of criminal responsibility, which is 14. And in our country in recent years, the total number of people in prison and also people on probation has declined. Here you can see numbers which is related to juveniles and young offenders. For instance, if you look at the prison population, the last years, when you look at the minors in prison in Estonia, so there's only like 1 or 3 juveniles, which is a good sign, I think so. But also we can see that on probation, the number of juveniles has also been in decline over the last years. And if we look at the registered crime rates, then you can also see that although the number of youngsters and juveniles in country in total has risen, then the number of registered crime is in decline, which is good. About those 2 projects that I would like to share the information and experience, they are both come from the policy that we have guidelines. We name those criminal policy guidelines. So it's a political paper which is approved also by the parliament. And we have like 3 main points in those guidelines, which is gives us the vision and the focus that we should do in the next years. So actually the preparation work to have changes in our youth legal justice system, they started, I think that maybe in 2012, 2013, the preparation for the legal framework changes started then. But the real changes were forced into different laws and acts were between the years of 2016 and 18. And what was the main problem? So why did Estonia was in the need of those changes in legal framework? I think that the Fleur Sovereign, in her first presentation, she was actually quite well showing the reasons which comes from the research. At the same time, we understand that shaming and blaming doesn't work. So the changes was needed because we wanted to focus on that juveniles can take more responsibility, to focus on their strengths and positive change. And for instance, we had a system in Estonia that we called juvenile committees system. It was abolished in 2018, and amendments to the penal code and code of misdemeanor procedure and code of criminal procedure. There was changes so that we can focus on this new initiatives that we had. So here are just some examples. For instance, two ministers also have set the target that if it's a case of a juvenile, then the proceedings should be faster than in general. So it was a priority for police and prosecutors to do the proceedings faster, which is actually quite important if we talk about the impact and the consequences of what happened. So about this project, I want to give you an overview more about this project, Youth-Friendly Legal Justice System, and talk a little bit less about the other project because the other one is still ongoing project, and it's kind of a follow-up to this project. And this project, which was co-funded by the Norwegian grants, is now finished. It's over last year in April. So this project was implemented with partners, with the other organizations. And it is actually also a learning moment that I will tell later also that why is it good and when it's good to think about like taking partners that you can do things together with somebody. But this project is based on like four core pillars. First of all, training and development to change the attitudes and values, to develop new skills to the specialists who work with juveniles. And we had one training program which lasted for 9 months. So it was a in-depth training program. At the same time, we had a lot of initiatives and training programs to develop skills of child-friendly procedures, which were not that long. So like for 3, 4, 5 days long trainings, which were related to child-friendly procedures, restorative justice principles. We talked about trauma, crisis, and we had quite a lot of study visits to other countries, Finland, Netherlands, Norway mainly. And the new thing also which was implemented was that in prosecutor's office, there were 5 specialized youth consultants that were, so to say, helping out the prosecutor in searching for the best approach for the child or children who were offenders. So the role of this specialized consultant was to go in depth, so to say, with this youngster or a juvenile to understand the situation, and together with the with the offender, with the juvenile offender, to see what can be the best option so that we can prevent the further offenses. So the second core pillar is interventions. So the focus was on to take into account the needs of the children. And before we started to implement new ideas into practice, there was an analysis of interventions. And based on this analysis, for instance, a police, they draw out 3 new brief interventions, which we call like a follow-up contact. The other one is like tree of future opportunities. And the third one, provide your own solution. And also they developed an e-course, which was named an implementation of restorative justice and non-punitive measures for police officers. So this was also a change in practice. How do we as a government, or how do police react if there is an offense by the juvenile? So the principles of restorative justice were also made like a big impact here, because in Estonia, we made a huge step forward when we started this first training for our 8 people who later, after the training, started to train other specialists and volunteers in Estonia. So today we have restorative justice in Estonia written in the Victim Support Act. So it's a law, and we provide mediation service also for juveniles, but it started from this project. And in addition to all of this, we also have a mentoring program for juveniles and also youngsters. So someone who can work one-on-one with a mentor to help them to gain their confidence and to start over their life. Also was in our focus the examples from other countries. So we learned quite a lot from Iceland, we learned from Finland, different cooperation models. If we have problems such as youth gangs or bullying in schools, and also cases where intensive networking was important. So some initiatives that we had from other countries are also now in the use in Estonian practice. And the last one, development of residential care, which means that the closed facility for children did also a huge step forward regarding, so to say, child friendliness, because they had a basic skill training program for all the staff, not only for lower, but also for the management. We did a study on social group climate, focusing on relational security. So how to do this in the best way to have the best relational security in the closed facilities, and also in prison. That was also the part in the prison. So this project, if we look at the main impacts and key learnings, we had some indicators in the project also that you can see in the box. They were more like an outcome indicators, not so much about performance. Only one of the indicators is about the performance, which is the last one here, this proportion of alternative sanctions. You can see that so the numbers basically doubled. So we, together with this project, during the years, we saw that we can react in a different way. So this different approach actually have an impact also that the less cases are going to court. And the project actually helped just to put this policy changes, this legal framework changes into practice in a short time frame. So this is the biggest impact, I suppose, that in 4 years, the fundamental changes in sentencing practice were implemented in Estonia. But the learning elements here are those green ones. And we also, I hope that we also took them into consideration when we started our new project, where that although we did a lot of evaluations on risk and needs assessment tools, there is still some sort of a great area how and what practitioners exactly use. So there are some tools, but I think that there is also at the same time some questions like in the air that whether it's the right tools, whether all the practitioners use the tools in the same way or not. The other thing, I think that the biggest learning moment personally for me, I think that because I am also responsible for the implementation of the next project, is that you can have a lot of nice ideas and you can have a lot of initiatives in your head, and you can also do a lot of good things, but a lot of initiatives end together with the project. There are people in different organizations who are really enthusiastic. They cooperate, they do good things which have good results, but sometimes when the project ends, this enthusiasm also ends. And what we try to do in our new project is that we try to link our project activities to the strategic objectives of those organizations who are our partners. And this is also the learning element that key partners should be involved from the very beginning. Plus the communication strategy, because communication is also the important part of the implementation process. And the last thing here is that what we also have to think about is that if we want to see changes in municipalities, in local municipalities, then what usually happens is that active local municipalities are on board. So they want to see also changes, they want to interact, they want to do something. But those local municipalities where there are more troubles, they are out of the picture. So we have to reach out also to them because they have more trouble. So it makes sense, but sometimes maybe we doesn't see the whole picture and we go with the flow, and then we only work with those active ones. So, and this is now just a brief overview of the ongoing project that we have now, which is co-funded by the European Social Fund. It is also implemented together with the other partners, quite the same partners that we had in the previous project. So it's like an ongoing and follow-up project now. If the other one, the previous one, was related to juveniles, then this one is related to juveniles, but also on young offenders or young adults up to the age of 29. And I will just show you the implementation scheme, which basically covers all the activities of this project, and also the previous slide. So those colors that you see here that are the brightest one, so this orange, yellow, green, and pink, this is implemented by our project team at the ministry. And this is what you see is a blue one, is implemented by our partners. And you can just see that we try to focus on pre-trial proceedings, court proceedings, and also after court proceedings when someone is in prison or probation and is returning to the community. So we're trying to gather all the picture together and to start with the police. How do we react to the offense? And ending with returning to the community and, I don't know, for instance, using the principles of restorative justice when someone needs to return to the community from a prison, for instance. I think that's it. And if you have questions, then I will stay here as everybody else to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stanislav, for that whistle-stop tour of two of your projects just finished and ongoing in Estonia. So you can definitely see similarities, but also differences between these presentations we've heard today. And I look forward to discuss also the questions which we already received some here in the Q&A. So I'm going to start with Northern Ireland, actually. There are two questions there. One very fairly easy to respond to, maybe. And that's the question about do female and male students in Heidebank interact? So please, Kathy and Richard. Yes.
Hi there. So with this being a shared site and a relatively small site, students will bump into each other from time to time as they're moving around. Visits is a shared space, and our healthcare department is a shared space. So appointments will be going on for both males and females at once. In general, though, they are kept separate. There are separate moves for moving to and from learning and skills. There are separate days for education and activity. And when one cohort is using the Learning and Skills Centre, the other cohort is being educated or in activity in other locations around the centre. Hopefully that answers that.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. And another question to you, Kathy and Richard, is from Peter Gornishev. He is asking about community partnerships that you mentioned. So Peter and his colleagues have experienced that the community partners are often very busy, so it is often difficult to engage them in a niche activity like juvenile justice, for example. So is there something relating to labeling or prejudice that you've been working on to attract partners in this sense?
No, I think part of our focus was on that outreach program of bringing people in, first of all, to see Heidebank Wood and to break down that perception of what prison life is. And in doing so, then we worked very closely with a local church. And that church group had a number of retired professional people. And through that, they volunteered then to come in and act as mentors. Some of them are retired teachers, which was excellent for us. And then, we bring groups of people in on a very frequent basis. Kathy and I met this morning with two of our Lord Lieutenants from Northern Ireland who were part of a delegation visiting here from all of Lord Lieutenants in Northern Ireland. And we had a number of volunteers who come up and give up of their time. I think they come one day per week. In fact, we just had a discussion before today's presentation about the scheduling now of all of the volunteers. So we have got to that stage where we have plenty of volunteers and it's making sure that when they come, that we have the right people to see them in the right place at the right time.
Thank you. That makes full sense. And I think that answered the question as well. So information and awareness and increasing the knowledge about what a prison is or a secure college is seems to be the key here. Then the Swedish presentation was raising a couple of questions. One is from Finland. From Sanna Rila, where they say that they see the similar development as in Sweden in terms of increasing juvenile crimes, very serious ones. So what is your opinion, Sara and Gunilla? Is there any magic solution, and how can you sort of stop this negative progression? It's a wide question, so I'm very humble when I ask this question.
And we have to be equally humble trying to think about this together. What I can say from my perspective, being very involved in different collaboration missions with other agencies, is that I think that the last couple of years has really made agency collaboration and I suppose societal collaboration very urgent for this type of problem. I think everyone can agree that one actor cannot solve this problem. This is not a criminal justice problem alone. This is a societal challenge, and we have to really help with everyone has to help out, so to speak. And I think that we have this kind of movement now, I have to say, within the police authority and the council and the municipalities and the researchers. We're all trying to rally together to try and support children. Obviously, within the system, our main goal is to obviously prevent them from coming into the criminal justice system altogether. So I suppose a little bit of hope, maybe, that we are talking the same language, maybe, but the situation is very serious.
I can add that the opinion and the direction is about long prison sentences is necessary for the security in the society. But I think for our authority is the key is to focus on what we do on the inside.
And in Sweden, is there any, you heard the Estonian presentation by Stanislav that there was sort of let's say, a broad agreement among political parties on the direction of juvenile justice. There's something similar in Sweden that you can sort of lean into when it comes to designing your interventions and youth prisons.
I think that the signal that I'm not a legal expert as Gunilla, so maybe I can speak more freely, but I think as I read the mission and the inquiry, I can see a lot of recommendations to really try and make sure that the rights of the children or the juveniles are being respected. And it's very clear in the report that the person writing the report can see that this is more costly. It requires different competencies. You need to sort of step up your game when it comes to your content. So I can see this kind of approach within the report in a way.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Thank you. And a connecting question is about specifically on gang-related crime, organized crime, and this goes out to, I think, all the speakers. I mean, it's relevant in all contexts, I think. Is there any specific youth gang prevention programs that can be recommended, and how would they be designed or conducted?
Maybe I can, because I didn't turn off my microphone. I can maybe start. We have been looking into a lot of research, and we have some reports, but our Swedish empirical data is very limited. So we're trying, as we sort of work, I work also with support to defectors. We are working together with municipalities to create a unison follow-up model, for example. But what we rely on quite a lot heavily is the principles of the risk, need and responsivity model, which makes it possible for us to work both with the risk factors and also the strengths, like Fleur was saying. So this is our mission in SPPS, and also the municipalities nowadays are also adopting this way of thinking when it comes to this target group. So
thank you. Fleur?
Yeah, if I can maybe add to that, because I think it's a question that concerns us all. And I'm in the Netherlands involved in a big consortium because the government in the Netherlands actually released a lot of money to specifically tackle this issue, to prevent youth from getting involved in organized crime by being at one side, giving them opportunities, and on the other side, setting limits and borders for them and consequences when they do cross the line. And we're currently researching it. And what you see now already from the results is that it always calls for an integrated approach. So an approach that really touches on all different life domains that youth are involved in. Also, the online is a big aspect of it. A lot of youth get contacted in the online environment, asked, and involvement in organized crime is sometimes also quite dynamic. So we see a lot of youth who sometimes do something and are not as big in the network already. But yeah, I think we need to approach it on the online, and I think that's an area that we, well, also my age group is definitely on behind, and it's developing so quickly. But tackling that is important. What we also see is that here in the Netherlands, I'm researching a program focusing on credible messengers. So people who, they never operate on themselves. They're always operating within a network of professionals. But we do see from our observations already is that they know the language of the street, and they could connect with these young people in a way that professionals not always able to. So if you work together with them, they might also be able to provide an opportunity to address these issues with young people.
Thank you, Fleur. Any comments on that topic from Kathy, Richard, or Stanislav?
Yeah, in Northern Ireland, we have a government-led diversionary program for young people, and that is the Tackling Paramilitarism Task Force. That's widely supported by community groups, and it would be used to try and divert people from getting involved with organised crime, but also from coming into custody then. We don't really engage with it from our perspective in the establishment, but we are aware that it obviously is impactful for the young people in our community, and that is demonstrated by the reduced number of young men who are coming into our custody. So at the moment, if we're sitting with, did we say 45 young men in custody, when a matter of years ago, when Richard first came over, it was probably in around the 300, where you'd be looking at over 300 18 to 21-year-old young men in this establishment. So significant changes for us that way, but we do recognise that there is a trend coming towards younger people being more involved in that type of crime. As I say, the government are taking steps to try and manage that from a community base.
Thank you. Stanislav, what's the development in Estonia?
I think that there is no like such a universal tool, you know, that you can just use when there is a problem with the gangs or something like that. At least in Estonia, we don't have such a tool. Regarding this like problem or issue of those gangs, I was also referring in my presentation, is more about fortunately it's not like so like bad things that they do in Estonia at the moment. Like listening to the colleagues from Sweden, it's not the same in Estonia, but if there is a problem such as we call it youth gang, then I think that it's more like a casework. If someone does something, then whether it's this network that you do, so you gather people together, starting from the child protector service, maybe probation, if someone is already done something that someone is on probation. So in the end, it's like a case management, like working one-on-one, not working with the gang. Yeah, I see it like that. So, but if needed, then they mentioned out of circle this model. You can use it if there is a need for that, but it isn't a universal tool, you know, that can solve the problem of gangs.
Thanks, Stanislav. I think linking to this was something that was mentioned from my colleagues in Northern Ireland, that you have a family strategy, and I mean, if you look at when you work in adult prisons, you might have, let's say, a network focus, and you focus on positive and negative, let's say, influences. But it's very different in different countries whether you include family in that approach or not. But you were very explicit with having this family strategy, and I think it also links to let's say, ways out of this behavior, so to say. So can you just elaborate a little bit on how you actually sort of involve family in the treatment or the interventions?
Okay, well, I suppose there's a number of elements. We introduced virtual visits here during COVID, and those have continued through. So our population have access to contact their families by telephone, by virtual visits, and by in-person visits. When a person comes into custody, their family are given an opportunity to come into the establishment, meet with our voluntary community partners, with our statutory partners, and discuss things that may be on their mind. We give them an opportunity to walk through the prison, well, the college, and just see for themselves the environment that we have here. And that tends to break down a big barrier between us and them. We have a very good group of voluntary community partners who are integral in building relationships with the families. So they meet them at the first point of contact at the visitor centre. They also have different levels of outreach where they will help repair any kind of family rifts, where they will help to signpost people into, say they need addiction services, or if they need help with social services and child protection. So we have as I've said before, we have a whole college approach to much of what we do. And as a service, we would say the family as the kind of golden nugget. It's the thing that often helps to make someone think about their actions, and also supports them then whenever they are at the point of release. Anything you'd like to add?
No.
Thank you so much. I think the sort of that college approach or the ethos of a school is very inspiring, I must say, and I don't think that sort of stops with juvenile institutions. I think that should be the focus of also adult institutions. So I think that there's a lot to learn there from your example. Thank you. Fleur, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that because I think, Gustav, you raised a very interesting and important point, because when it comes to organized crime, it's very relational. As I said, there's some youth that opt in and out of these networks, but for young people that are very involved deeply in these networks, there's such a relational aspect where they come into contact via their parents, via their cousins, via the neighborhood. So addressing it from that family and broader, like, relational and social perspective is crucial. Here in the Netherlands, we're, for example, also researching an intervention that specifically focuses on mothers and families of a very tough organized men involved in severe organized crime, targeting with a trauma approach the moms and the children to sort of guide them to a different path and heal their traumas. Yeah, so I just wanted to add to the relational aspect of it.
Thanks. Very important point. So I see our time is flying, and it's a very, very interesting discussion. We have a very hands-on question here, maybe mainly for those of you who work directly with juveniles. That is from Monica Martinez. She asks, could you please share good practices to calm down agitated or violent juveniles to minimize the use of force and other means of restraints?
I think from our Northern Ireland perspective, what we have found that really works is really focusing and building on those personal relationships between our staff and the people that reside here. And that is really the very first steps for de-escalation. So with young people, as you know, young people are very sporadic in their thoughts, sometimes very sporadic in their behaviours. But rather than moving immediately to control and restraint, having a conversation in the first hand, or allowing 5 to 10, 15 minutes to cool down, and then having a conversation really is effective in terms of changing people's minds and their behaviours.
But that means more of a preventive approach, right? That you sort of prevent conflicts. But I think this, as was mentioned in the beginning, when we screened for typical features of juvenile detention, it was this sort of volatile environment where temperament and feelings can change very quickly. So do you also have a specific approach when it it gets a bit more heated, so to say?
Yeah, well, I mean, when those occasions do happen, and we find that it's more likely now in Northern Ireland that those will happen between people who are coming in suffering from addictions or substance abuse or neurodiverse issues, where in one hand it can be very volatile, and the other hand it can be very vulnerable. And at those stages, we rely on control and restraint. And that is a set training program that all of our prison staff are qualified in.
So is that the same for the adult and the juvenile population, so to say?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any comments from the other speakers on this topic? No? Okay, let's continue. So we have a question about mental health services, and that's also to our Northern Irish colleagues. If you could advise on what mental health services that are available for your population in your prison. And maybe you can also break it down into external and internal, because that would be interesting, I think, to know what is in your capacity and what's sort of brought in from the outside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
A lot of our residential staff are trained in trauma-informed practice. So obviously that's our kind of first thing. We would use our own staff to try and break down what the problem is, and then we'll refer to our colleagues in our healthcare and prisons who have a specific mental health team. Our safety and support team are a group of staff who are prison officers who are trained and would use slightly different techniques than a residential officer would have. They can bring people to a breakout room, and they can have one-to-one discussions. They would use different types of therapies, fidget spinners, and activities where you are using you're occupying that energy. I'm trying to describe, but basically you're occupying that energy for that individual to allow them to let out whatever it is that they have going on in their mind, and it creates an atmosphere that allows them to relax and then discuss what their issues are. Now, if we need to refer those people on to other services, we will do that. For example, if there's a number of people, there's a number of our population who are the victims of domestic sexual abuse, violence, trafficking. So we have other agencies that we interlink with, and we'll refer them into that type of counselling. We would also be able to refer people externally through other agencies in our community. So for example, again, if somebody was leaving our population and we knew that they were going out but they were particularly vulnerable, we would ensure there's a handover done between the internal prison healthcare system and the trust of the location that they are going to. So I think it's really just about trying to make sure that the right person is seen by the right provider at the time that they need them. And we're very fortunate to have a number of different avenues to explore. The difficulty we do have, or one of the difficulties that we do have, is addiction. And do you treat the addiction, or do you treat the mental illness? And is the mental illness a direct result of that addiction? And how that all kind of can be dismantled and dealt with for the benefit of the individual. We do try and take, I would say try, but we do successfully take an individual approach with each case. We don't have like hard and fast rules for who's referred to who when. It's all dictated and decided by the need of that individual at that time.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. So today we've covered a number of topics relating to juveniles in detention. There are plenty of questions unanswered in the Q&A, but I'm happy to let the audience know that the speakers are willing to share their emails. So we will share them with a follow-up email on this webinar. So if you have specific questions on their field of work, you can contact them directly. I just again want to say thank you so much to the speakers, to Fleur, Stanislav, Sara, Gunilla, Kathy, and Richard for preparing such great presentations. I think we had a great, let's say, a variety of presentations and also describing the situation in different countries. And I think we can continue this discussion for many hours, but unfortunately we have to close for today. I will also leave some time for evaluation. So after I finish speaking, we will present a QR code where you can enter an evaluation form, and that we really encourage you to fill this out because it helps us in addressing relevant topics for the future, but also to know whether you were happy with this event and if we can improve in any way. So that will be very helpful. I would also like to announce that we have an upcoming event, the Correctional Research Symposium. And for those who haven't registered, I think you should do that because tomorrow we close the registrations for the early bird. And the conference will be organized in Belfast in Northern Ireland. And Hydebank Wood is actually one of the visiting sites for that event. So if you're interested and want to combine, let's say, a prison visit with a great conference on research in probation and prison, I would recommend you to come to Belfast in mid-May. And you find more information on our website, europris.org. And moreover, if you're interested in EuroPris events and activities, please follow us on LinkedIn, and you can also on the website sign up for our newsletter. With those words, I will thank you again for attending, and I hope to see you at the future events in person or online. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.